Welcome back to CSZNet's video podcast series. I'm your host, Jimmy, and today we're exploring tips that can help make you the perfect trainer. Joining me is Alina from CSZNet. Great to have you with us, Alina. Before we get started, I want to ask you this question. With all the videos and online courses available, why do we even need in-person training anymore?
Thanks, Jimmy. I'm excited to talk with you again. And that's a great question. First, yes, video training does have its benefits, and CSZNet can help you create engaging videos for self-paced learning. But there are still reasons why you need in-person training, especially for complex subjects or skills that require deeper interaction and practice. Here are some of the benefits of in-person training. Face-to-face training fosters better communication between trainers and participants, allowing for immediate feedback and clarification of concepts. Trainers can quickly address questions or challenges that arise during the training, facilitating a smoother learning process. In-person training can keep participants more engaged and focused, minimizing distractions that might be present in virtual settings. Many skills, particularly technical or practical ones, are best learned through direct practice and interaction, which is more effective in a physical environment. Participants can build relationships with peers and instructors, which can be valuable for future collaboration and support. And for team-based training sessions, in-person interactions can build camaraderie and improve teamwork skills through collaborative activities.
Those are great reasons for in-person training. But can't in-person training be challenging, even for experienced trainers?
Yes. So we have tips for trainers, even experienced trainers. We'll break it down into 2 podcasts, preparing for training, and then actually giving the training session. Today, I'd like to talk about what you need to do to prepare your in-person training to make it effective and enjoyable for your participants.
Great, let's get started. What's the first tip?
Creating training and presentation materials can be an arduous task. You want to ensure that your presentation and your material hit the mark. The order of your presentation matters. You need to order the course content so as not to introduce complex subjects too early on. But you also don't want to introduce new concepts at the end of the day or the end of the session. If you aren't 100% familiar with the course content, work out approximately how many slides to get through per hour so that you can at least keep track of your approximate progress. You also need to be prepared to subtly vary the pace of the course to balance the content over the allocated time.
So it's kind of a balancing act figuring out the order of your training.
Right. And attention to detail is a must. You don't want to have too much detail in what you are presenting that it forces your audience to just read your content without listening to you.
Yes, if the audience is only going to read content, they don't need an in-person trainer. So what's the next tip?
You want to keep your audience engaged and inspired. Presenting them with 200 slides of boring, bulleted material will do little to achieve that. Similarly, talking at them for hours on end will yield little enthusiasm. Vary your training material with examples, case studies, imagery, and research. You can encourage engagement with participant interaction. Ways to do this include interspersing your presentation with exercises, dialogue, and question and answer sessions.
I can see how that would really help.
So, expanding on the exercises tip, engage your audience with interesting exercises that stimulate and teach material covered in the relevant course section. Exercises can be carried out in groups or individually on paper, on the computer, or as an open question and answer session.
It sounds a little bit like testing. Could that cause any anxiety?
You definitely want to avoid that. Make it fun when applicable and avoid putting participants on the spot. A great way to diffuse any tension in the room and break the ice is to incorporate lighthearted moments. Of course, you need to strike a balance between humor and respect for the training content and purpose. Avoid using humor that undermines the seriousness or importance of the learning objectives. Instead, use humor to create a relaxed and approachable atmosphere that fosters engagement and participation.
Another great tip. So, you've put your content together, incorporating these tips. Is that everything for preparing for training?
There are other things that as a trainer you need to consider, even before you start the training. Controlling the pace of each training course is highly important. Burning through slides at light speed only to finish 4 hours early will not impress your participants. Equally, you cannot reach the end of the day with over half your content still to go. If you aren't 100% familiar with the course content, work out approximately how many slides to get through per hour so that you can at least keep track of your approximate progress. Be prepared to subtly vary the pace of the course to balance the content over the allocated time.
What kinds of things would cause a trainer to need to vary the pace of the course?
As a trainer, you always need to be prepared for change. With inquisitive participants, you may find that the training course starts to deviate in unexpected ways. If you find the course is digressing, you may want to suggest to your participants that the agenda is modified slightly to meet their needs. Don't be afraid to suggest this to your audience. It's more important to meet their exact needs than to follow your course structure precisely.
Is there anything else regarding course materials to keep in mind when planning training?
Yes, you should leave your audience with printed materials that they can consult in the future. No one is going to remember everything you said during the training session. Make sure your printed leave-behind material is legible and easy to digest. It could be a slightly more fleshed out version of the course, or possibly further reading or research material. And there could be links to video training on the content. At CSZNet, we can easily create video training for you.
Those are great ideas. Here's a random thought. Maybe it's just me, but I always seem to be hungry during long training sessions.
You're not alone. Giving your participants treats goes a long way. Small snacks smartly shared works wonders for participation and engagement. Another kind of treat you can provide is in the form of a really useful leave-behind or even a nugget of exclusive information. But those won't solve the hunger pangs, so those need to be in addition to food.
Sounds like we're ready with a great presentation, pace, and treats. What else do we need to consider before we start training?
What about where the training is going to take place? Sometimes you don't have a choice about this. If you can schedule the location, use a space that is stimulating and has good light and ambience. There's nothing worse than a stuffy, overcrowded room with little light or oxygen. A good venue will contribute to better learning and will make the whole experience more enjoyable for your participants. And if you can schedule the training space, make sure that you have it scheduled to allow ample time for you to arrive and set up without being rushed.
So, we're ready to start the presentation?
Yes, but not only should you have scheduled the training venue with ample time to set up and acclimatize to the environment, you need to make sure you arrive in time to do so. Don't arrive at the training course 5 minutes before it is due to start. There's nothing worse than presenting to an audience flustered.
Right. You can always tell if the trainer is flustered. It makes it seem like they aren't ready.
And even after all of your thoughtful and hard work preparing for the presentation, it casts doubt on your credibility. So, make sure you are ready to present.
Those are great tips for training preparation.
Thanks, Jimmy.
We'll cover the next set of tips for giving the presentation in our upcoming podcast. Anything you want to add?
As a reminder, at CSZNet, we can provide the foundation for building and delivering impactful Train the Trainer programs, and we are dedicated to helping you achieve your training goals. We understand the importance of equipping your team with the skills and confidence to drive positive change. You can partner with us to unlock the full potential of your training programs. We'd be happy to discuss your training needs and what we can do for you.
Thank you again, Alina. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of our AI Studio Services podcast series.